Hi everyone, I'm Pat Kelly from the Ventura County Fire Department. I'm currently a training captain assigned to Training 2, and I'm also the County CERT Coordinator. This segment today, we're going to be talking about people with special needs. And although somebody has special needs, that does not disqualify you from also having to prepare yourself for the potential of a disaster. So the onus is actually on you to prepare yourselves even more. Besides just that 72-hour kit to sustain yourself, food, water, medicines, and other essential things that you'll need, you also have to take a look at your own situation and take into account if you require dialysis or in-home oxygen generators, or maybe hearing aids that take specific kind of batteries. Maybe you have limited vision. Maybe it's even limited mobility. As we're preparing our disaster kit, we need to take into account those things that are going to make us comfortable and as safe as possible following that disaster. So we need to really analyze what it is that sustains us personally and make sure that we have an idea or a thought process in mind how we're going to make those things happen when perhaps the utilities aren't working, perhaps the batteries are dead. We need to really make sure that we consider all those scenarios and take the appropriate steps to make sure that we remedy as many problems as possible prior to the disaster event. It's not what disaster, it's what disaster season that we're in. One of the best things to do is to make sure that you have your spare medication on hand. Maybe call the pharmacy that you use and get extra medications to prepare for a disaster to have set aside. Along with that would be to check the expiration dates on your medication and look at those particular instructions that come with the medication. Is it heat sensitive? Does it need to be kept cold? Do you need, for instance, needles or other things to deliver that medication? And those are the things that you have to really think about. If you're dependent on oxygen, do you have spare oxygen cylinders? Just like a wrench to turn off a water heater, do you have a wrench to turn off your oxygen cylinder? Or do you have a spare wrench with those spare oxygen cylinders? With people that might have limited vision, probably one of the worst things you could imagine would be to be without your glasses, your contact lenses, whatever it is that helps you see. So I highly recommend that you keep spare glasses. They may be old, they may be a little bit out of prescription, but at least they'll give you that modicum of safety and feeling a little bit better about your own particular situation should a disaster strike. In the case of any emergency or disaster, probably one of the best things that we can do is realize that we're not going to be able to do this on our own. So one of the tips that we have for you is have an out-of-state contact. Well, in fact, have more than one out-of-state contact that you can call, that you can check in, and that people know that they can go to that person to get information on how you're doing. More than that, rely on your neighbors or maybe people in the community and task them with the things that you might need after a disaster. Things like shutting off your power, shutting off the water service, turning off the gas. These are all things, especially for people that may have special needs and can't do it themselves. They need to find other people that can take care of those tasks for them. We're most likely going to have to rely on our neighbors. So communicate those things. Have a plan in your neighborhoods within the village to take care of the things that you might need, whether it be turning off the water, shutting off the power, turning off the gas. Or in fact, it might be the opposite. It might be after a disaster where those things need to be restored. One of the biggest things to remember in preparing for a disaster is this is all self-preparedness. And although you might have special needs or there might be special considerations in your case specifically, you need to take those steps to prepare yourself and prepare your neighbors that are with you. Because following a disaster, we're all going to have to work together to make sure that we all come out of it as good as we can. The big thing to remember is that in times of disaster, there's probably going to be nobody that's going to come to get to us. The local first responders like myself might be a victim of the disaster as much as anybody else could be. So there might be a delay. So we need to make sure that we get the information out that you need to prepare yourself. And you really need to look at your own situation. Some of the other things that really need special consideration are those people that are mobility limited. I know a lot of people use motorized battery-powered scooters or power chairs, for lack of a better word. Have a plan for those if you can't recharge them. Do you have a solar charging system? Do you have a backup, maybe a manual wheelchair, a walker, those kind of things? We need to make sure that you take those steps and have that personal accountability to think about what's going to make you the most comfortable and feel the most secure following a disaster event. So think through those scenarios and plan accordingly. Some of the other things to consider are establishing your own personal network, whether they be friends, family, perhaps even co-workers of yours that agreed to assist you after a disaster. We know that the village is not going to be able to take care of our needs. We need to establish those personal connections to make sure that we have those in place prior to the disaster event, as well as an out-of-state contact, as I mentioned previously. Finally, one of the biggest things that you can do is just taking that step of creating a disaster kit. You know, potentially have one that goes in your car, if you have a car, or have one that you could take with you in the event that you're getting picked up. But also have one that's designated to stay in your home, that has things like food, water, again, your medications, maybe spare eyeglasses or other medical devices that you need or rely upon. And for more information on that, you can go to the FEMA website or ready.gov, which is a California website, and there's plenty of lists that'll give you detailed suggestions on what should be included in those disaster supply kits. Probably one of the scenarios that really needs the most thought put behind it is those medical devices that are powered, that need a consistent supply of electricity to operate. Things that don't, for instance, have a battery backup, but actually need a household current to it. That would be things like an in-home dialysis, or maybe not oxygen tanks, but an oxygen generator that needs a power source to provide that oxygen. Those are things that constantly have to be powered. So one of the recommendations would be to look at your personal situation, and if you fall into that category, maybe look into some alternate source of power, like a backup generator or something. The technology anymore has gotten so good that a lot of those things are not nearly as heavy and cumbersome as they used to be, and they're actually lightweight and very portable. So if you rely on those things for your home health, please look into those things and take the appropriate measures to make sure that you have that backup power supply. So in closing, we need to remember that preparing for a disaster is something that we have to do. We never know when a disaster is going to strike, whether it be next year or it could be even tomorrow. So make sure that you don't delay in taking the appropriate measures to prepare yourself to survive and carry on following a disaster. I hope these segments have been helpful to you, and thanks for watching. And please reach out to me at the fire department if there's any other questions or things that I could answer for you. Thank you.